Hey, good morning. This is Chuck. I wanted to do one more video on pins before we moved on to other subjects. Today's just going to be kind of about being a little versatile. We all have the little slimline kits that are pretty inexpensive, and they kind of come out like this. And what I'd like to do today is just go off and show you how to make that slimline pin come into something like this. It's actually really stunning, and it gives you a lot of opportunities to really kind of go off and try out your creative juices and stuff. So we're going to go through and I'll walk you through the steps. It'll be a short video, but we'll kind of go through this, and I think you'll be happy with what you can do with this when you're all done. Thanks. What we'll do today is we'll start off with just a small old piece of cherry wood that I've gone off and I made a pin blank out of. And I won't tie you up going through all the process, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it to length. I'm going to go ahead, I'll drill the holes through, I'll put the brass tubes in. But we're going to do one thing just a little bit different. I'm going to cut one of these blanks 1/4 of an inch shorter than normal, so that when I put it onto the tube, we'll have 1/4 of an inch or so of an extension on this. And to that we're going to add the contrasting piece of wood. So I'll set that part of it up first, and then I'll come back after we're ready to put the contrasting wood in. Alright, I've been saving all these little pieces that I cut out of my pin blanks, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab one. I think I'll go with the darker one to go with the cherry. It kind of vindicates all those months and years I've been saving these little things, wondering what I'm going to do with them. So with this going on now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to drill a hole through the blank that I've got, and then I'll show you how I do the assembly before we put it on the lathe. Okay, one of the things that we want to make sure of on those first blanks we did on that cherry is that we've got a nice square cut on the end. And what I actually did was I've got a small chop saw down here in the basement, and I used that to go ahead and guarantee that I've got a nice square end on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the epoxy. The first blank's going to go in just as we would any other one, or the first tube's going to go in just as we would anyone else. The second one, when I put it in, I'm going to bring it through, and then I'm going to put the contrasting piece right there. And you'll notice that I've got a nice, very nice tight fit right up against that, and I'll epoxy that around and ring it through on all the sides. And then once that dries, there's two steps we want to be careful of when we put it on the lathe, and then I think this is going to turn out, we're going to have some really nice results with this one. This one's going to go in, like I said, just as you would with any other tube going through the blank. And I like to kind of scrape off and clean it, and I'll actually push it in just a little bit further. That's what these little brass or the little bamboo toothpicks are really nice about. Now when I do the other one, I'm going to push it flush to the other end, and then I want to make sure that I get some of it inside that tube by a fair amount, because when we go to put the clamp on it, I'm going to want to make sure that the tube doesn't come back out from this side. We can always come through with the reaming tool later and clean this out. And once I got that in, I'm going to go off and I'm going to re-put the epoxy both on the wood and around on the brass tube here. And I'll actually even just put a little bit on this here, just because I like to do that. Used to do it when I was making golf clubs. I wanted epoxy on both sides. We're going to do this, and now I'm going to get a clamp, and we're going to clamp this together so I can get a nice tight fit on it while it dries. Okay, the epoxy's all set now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically put them in the vise. I'm going to remount the tubes, and I'm going to use my cutter on them. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set them up and put them on the mandrel. One important thing to note is when I run the cutter through on the part with the insert, I'm not going to take it all the way down to the brass tube. I'm going to try and leave it about 1/8 of an inch shy, which I'm hoping will kind of compensate for the lack of the metal ring in the original slimline kit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then I'm going to show you how I set it on the mandrel, because we're actually going to have to change the mandrel one time during the finishing process for this pin. Okay, so I've got it set up on the mandrel right now, and you notice that I've got some spacers in here because I want to make sure that I can true this down and get them both round with no protrusions from the wood from where I've done the reaming on it, so that when we do take the spacers out, it's a nice tight fit with the wood and there's no gaps on it. So we'll put it in the lathe, we'll true it down, and then we'll stop and we'll take the spacers out and push them back together again. Now that we've got the pin all trued up, what I'm going to do is take the spacer bushings out and put the two halves together. That way we can go ahead and we can form the pin. Once I've done that, we'll take it off the mandrel again. We'll put the spacer back in before we apply the finish. And I'm pretty positive with this pin what I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and put a CA finish on because I like both the durability of the CA and I think it just gives it a nice cleaner shine to it. Okay, I think we've got a nice shape to this now. And I forgot to mention before we go ahead and separate it, we're actually going to do the sanding on it first. So I'll run through the stages real quick and we're going to take it probably, I'll start off around 150 just in case it needs it. And then run it up to 1200. Should take just a second. I'll speed it up so that you're not bored to tears with it. Okay, I think we've got a very nicely shaped pin here. I've sanded it down to 1200 and I've got a nice little coat of sanding sealer on it. So I'm going to break it apart now and we'll end up with two halves on it and we'll go ahead and we'll put the CA glue finish on it. Hey, we're finishing up with the 12,000 grit now. We got a really nice glass-like finish on it. And you can see that what I've got here actually is a sawed-off half of a gallon milk jug that I use to just try and catch any drops of water that I'm not able to pick up with on the paper towel. Okay, we have the finished product now, and I got to tell you, I much prefer doing it like this rather than being confined to the metal center band on the traditional slimline kit. If you buy them in bulk, they're actually not that expensive. And I'm in outside sales, so I tend to give these away frequently to my customers. And since I'm using the pin blanks I'm making myself out of scraps and stuff, I'm into these things for under $2 each. So you can sit there and have a lot of fun with this project and let your imagination run you wild. Thanks. Have a great one. Look forward to talking to you soon.